Well, new tonight at 10 as the data center battle continues in Hermantown. A resistance movement came to nearby Duluth today, bringing a famous face with it.
And Northern News Now's Leslie Krebs attended a forum tonight at the deck organized by the Stop the Hermantown Data Center group. Leslie, they got some help from a couple popular comedians.
Yeah, the forum included a panel of people who oppose the construction of these hyperscale data centers, including Midwestern comedians Charlie Behrens and Mary Mack. Now, to be clear, this was very much an anti-data center event, with everyone who spoke strongly opposed. Residents from across the Northland, mostly those already opposed, gathered to discuss the proposed Google AI data center in Hermantown, including the man who's become an unlikely star of the anti-data center movement.
Until those answers are clear, it's just you want to give people the ability to, make that known.
Charlie Behrens offered not just his comedy, but says he's acting as an advocate for Midwesterners by questioning the need for AI data centers and the companies behind them.
And once they get that transparency, if they do, they want these companies to be held accountable and they want to be protected. I mean, it's not that hard to ask, I don't think.
Sarah Lofald, a resident of Hermantown and member of Stop the Hermantown Data Center, attended and says there's still a lack of transparency around the proposed project.
Trying to fill a gap between the community that wants the information and the city council and developer who has kind of left a lot of residents hanging.
Madison Kitch lives in Proctor and wasn't sure how she felt on the proposed data center. So she says she came to learn more on the subject before taking a strong stance.
Proctor and Hermantown are pretty close communities, so I just wanted to get more information about what's going on and what to expect, being that we are so close to this project.
I reached out to the group Jobs for Minnesota, as well as Hermantown city leaders for an interview or a comment about the event. They, however, declined. Now, as we've reported in the past, several Hermantown leaders are in favor of the data center, touting job creation and a boost in tax revenue, as well as money for the school district. Live in studio, Leslie Krebs, Northern News Now.